VikesNow with Dustin Baker, back for a new week, August 8th. It's a Monday. We are 6 days away from preseason when Minnesota travels to Las Vegas for a date with the Raiders in a game where they'll see Daniel Carlson, the kicker, Amir Abdullah, running back, and Tashawn Bauer, edge rusher. 3 former Vikings. A little factoid to start the show. Nobody cares. Do you guys care? We shall see. No, first preseason game. It's always fun. I have no idea if the starters will play. The McVay version of the Vikings, the McVay Rams typically did not play starters in preseason. So we shall see if Kevin O'Connell carries over that philosophy or if you see a drive or so from Cousins and Jefferson and Thielen. We shall see. However, the topic that I'm going to lift up briefly today is tight ends, because after the dust settled of week 2 of training camp, with all these little mini injuries, tiny injuries, the only one that's noteworthy is Irv Smith, TE1. After 1 year on the shelf, a torn meniscus, which is a very weird injury because sometimes basketball players are back in 3 or 4 weeks. Sometimes for Irv, it's the whole year and the whole spring. But he got back, and within 40 minutes, he was out again. Bad thumb. Had to go have it mended. And it looks like he should be out for a few weeks, and they hope/expect him to be back for week 1. So what does that do? Well, because you lived through the summer of 2020 and were misled about Danielle Hunter's injury, any injury that hits during the summer now, probably for the foreseeable future, you're a cynic. And you think, oh, right, well, this son of a bitch is going to be hurt until Kingdom Come, and he's not playing this year. That's the vintage Viking cynicism that creeps into your brain. So that's where we're at right now. If Irv Smith isn't ready to go, if this lingers, what's the contingency plan for an offense that on paper should be rip-roaring with all of these notable personalities and a brand new philosophy and head coach? So we've panicked a little bit. Can Johnny Munt be the guy? Zach Davidson channel all of that height and speed into majesty? Who's the next Tyler Conklin? It's been on your mind. You've heard from dudes like me talking about the free agents that are available if these guys aren't going to make the cut. But an unsung fact about this is that you need not panic. And it's not just because it's like, oh, they'll be fine. Conklin figured it out. There is evidence that I'm going to present in the next 8 to 10 minutes that will convince you that, oh, shit. Yeah, I didn't think about that. That's what I got coming for you today. Foremost, jot this down. The Vikings have an offensive coordinator. No, it is not Kevin O'Connell. Of course, O'Connell will probably do the McVay thing. Well, he is going to do it where he runs the offense. He calls the plays. It's not quite like Zimmer where he passes the menu down and says, figure it out, Mr. Kubiak 1 or Mr. Kubiak 2. There is a offensive coordinator. His name is Wes Phillips. He came over from the Rams. The son of Wade Phillips, Bum's grandson, is the Vikings offensive coordinator. So, of course, there's this dynamic of what is he going to do? I get it. This is what we did with Zimmer and George Edwards, Zimmer and Adam Zimmer, and Zimmer for Andre Patterson for the past 2 years. If you have a defensive-minded head coach like the Vikings did for 8 years, hell, you don't really need a defensive coordinator, but there is a guy in that role, and he might be semi-anonymous. Well, the offense-first version of these Vikings with O'Connell in charge, it's Wes Phillips, an offensive coordinator. So that's first thing out of the gate. Don't forget that there's an offensive coordinator. It's not completely the O'Connell show, although that might be nice. We shall see in, 33 days when the regular season starts. But this offensive coordinator, grandson of a bum, has a unique resume skill set that is, you guessed it, tight end heavy. I will run through it. You can tell all of your friends about why the Vikings tight end room is in good hands. It's because their leader on offense, at least on paper as offensive coordinator, comes from a robust tight end background. In 2013, Wes Phillips was the tight ends coach for the Dallas Cowboys. From 2014 through 2018, so 5 seasons, with Kirk Cousins mostly there. Wes Phillips was the, say it with me, tight ends coach for the Washington Commanders. And then in 2019 and 2020, he was scooped by McVay and was the bada bing tight ends coach for the Rams. And then last year he kept that title and was he added passing game coordinator onto the job description, or somebody did, probably McVay. But you have a tight ends guru with at least 9 seasons worth of experience working with tight ends. What does that mean? Well, when Irv Smith hurts the thumb, goes and has surgery, Wes Phillips is equipped to decide, all right, are these other 5 guys, Zach Davidson, Johnny Munt, Nick Muse, Ben Ellefson, and Sean Byer, are they going to do the trick? Well, Wes Phillips is going to know, because this is his bread and butter. Now, I could end the show and tell you have a wonderful afternoon, but I'm going to add more context. He seems to like this current group. If you go on to Craig Peters' Vikings mailbag for the week, I think it was released today, Wes went out of his way to say that he likes this group, these guys that are vying for roster spots. I guess right now vying for a TE1 job in preseason games. He only had positive things to say, and in theory, he didn't have to say anything at all. That's always the marker, is if he's mum about it and like, yeah, they're adapting. You know, he didn't say vanilla things. He said, you know, this is a good group. But on the whole, he's the best personality in a wide orbit to decide if this group is going to be fine. So I think that there is some credence to the fact that he endorses the current group. And if you look around, they haven't signed anybody besides Sean Byer, who probably won't make the 53-man team. He was the last free agent signee when Nate Stanley was cut, was a tight end 6. So if there was panic to be had in wake of the Irv Smith Jr. injury, they probably would have already explored Eric Ebron, Blake Jarwin, Jimmy Graham, Jared Cook, one of those free agents, because they're out there. The smoking gun evidence right now is they haven't done that, therefore they probably like what they had, and that's not a bad thing. You know, you already have guys in-house that can fill the Irv Smith role if it's even needed at all. And that's a segue. I want you to pump the brakes on the idea that Irv Smith's injury is that big of a deal. Yes, we lived through the summer of 2020 when we were lied to and Danielle Hunter was lost for the entire season because of a neck malady. But this doesn't have to be that. If everybody's telling the truth, a new coaching staff, this really can just be a minor thumb injury that needed surgery, and the dude should be back in a few weeks. That sounds logical to me. So I don't want you to think, oh, Irv Smith's gone. Now what? The guy's a bust. He's always hurt. You know, give him the benefit of the doubt, perhaps. Maybe he will be ready week 1, like the coaching staff is saying. But I think that's in tandem with Wes Phillips being a guru of this job, especially at tight end, that the Irv Smith Jr. on top of it all isn't that big a one. Now, if he tore his ACL or another torn meniscus or what have you, then we would probably have a deeper dive on this show about the contingency plan. But right now, there probably isn't one that's necessarily needed. There are the free agents out there. So right now you look at the efficacy of the other 5 guys that are on there, and as we transition into actual preseason games that feel a little bit more real than training camp scrimmages, you can wait and see. All right, well, Johnny Munt, he dropped 2 balls against the Raiders, something like that, or Zach Davidson looks like a moron out there. Then you always have the option to sign a tight end like Eric Ebron. They'll be out there. Eric Ebron even tweeted last week that, hey, I'm still a free agent, come scoop me. He said that to somebody. So there will be free agent tight ends if things start to look grim during the preseason. And I think on the whole, the biggest takeaway about why you need not be worried about the tight end status or TE2, who's it going to be, is because the alarm probably would have been sounded by now. If they knew in their heart of hearts that Irv Smith's injury was more severe than they're leading on, then you probably would have saw a transaction pop up that say Vikings signed so-and-so, some guy with vast starting experience who can fill the Irv Smith void. So you probably would have heard a little bit more anxiety or animosity about the plight as it stands now. And then concluding, think it was last week, Cousins went out of his way to talk about the development of Zach Davidson. And that's noteworthy because if I recall correctly, Cousins used to speak highly of Tyler Conklin before Conklin became a TE1 and $6.5 million per year man, which is what he landed with the Jets. So whether you like Cousins or you don't, he's got a wherewithal to scout these dudes, and he called out the development of Zach Davidson, saying, hey, this guy is going to be pretty good. He's taller than a giraffe. He's fast. He's emulates a wide receiver, but it just so happens for his size and stature that he's labeled a tight end. So I think with Cousins' positivity and Zach Davidson being on the roster, you do have a pass-catching tight end when need be. I think arguably, Munt and Ellefson have been labeled blocking tight ends, although I don't believe Munt's ever got a fair shake to do the whole shebang or be a receiving tight end. You have options of these mostly anonymous guys that, this is what Conklin was at this time last year or in 2020. Nobody knew who he was. He had cool long hair. Boom, he gets some targets with Irv Smith not in the mix. What do you know? He's an actual TE1, and now he plays elsewhere. So I think there is hope that if they don't sign anybody else, that between all of these options, they got 5 of them after Smith, you can find a guy that can fill the role of TE1 if that's even needed at all, because Smith probably isn't going to miss ample time. So I want you to stop panicking about Vikings TE2, because for God's sake, you shouldn't even panic about a TE2 to begin with. Irv Smith will be back. And the leader of the offense, at least in name, comes from a vast, almost decade-long background of developing, managing, coaching tight ends. How you feeling? All right, I'll be back on Tuesday with a new Vikings topic and Skol, baby.